The Wild West was never truly quiet. Even when the streets were empty and the doors were shut, the land itself kept speaking. The wind dragged secrets through the dust, whispering names that had been forgotten by men but not by the desert. The sun watched everything without mercy, burning memories into the earth. This land did not forgive mistakes. It remembered them. Long before Red Hollow existed, before the saloon, before the cracked wooden buildings and tired lanterns, this land had already seen blood. Wagons had crossed it in hope. Many never finished the journey. Bones rested beneath the sand, polished smooth by time, silent reminders that the West did not care about dreams. There was a time when men believed the West was full of opportunity, gold, freedom, a new beginning. They spoke of wide open skies and endless chances, of land where a man could become whatever he wanted. But most who came here learned a harder truth. The West did not give. It took strength first, then it took innocence, and if a man stayed long enough, it took his soul. Red Hollow rose from that truth. It was a small town, standing alone in a sea of dust and stone. People passed through it, but few stayed. Those who did had nowhere else to go. The buildings were rough and weather-beaten, their wood split by years of heat. The saloon stood at the center like a tired heart, its lanterns dim, its walls soaked with old smoke and older regrets. There was a jail with empty cells, and a sheriff who wore a badge but held no real authority. The people of Red Hollow had learned how to survive. They spoke softly. They did not ask questions. They looked away when trouble passed through, and when the sun dipped low and the sky turned red, they locked their doors and prayed the night would move on without noticing them. Because trouble always came at night. On this particular evening, the sky burned orange as the sun sank behind distant hills. The air felt heavier than usual, thick and tense, as if the desert itself was holding its breath. Even the wind slowed, drifting cautiously through the streets. Far away, a single figure moved across the horizon. A man on horseback, slow, steady, not in a hurry, not afraid. His coat was dark and worn, shaped by years of travel and hardship. His hat sat low, hiding eyes that had seen too much and forgotten too little. The horse beneath him moved like it trusted the man completely, each step kicking up dust that lingered behind them like a trail of ghosts. Some people in Red Hollow noticed the rider, and when they did, their hearts tightened, because they recognized him, or at least they recognized the memory of him. Years ago, this man had been known across the West, not as a legend sung in loud songs, but as a quiet certainty. He was one of the fastest guns alive, not cruel, not reckless, just precise. When trouble came to him, it did not leave. His name was Ethan Cole. Most believed Ethan Cole was dead. Some said he had chased the wrong man into the desert and never returned. Others claimed he had thrown his gun into the sand and walked away from violence forever. A few whispered that he had died inside long before his body ever could. But here he was. Ethan rode into Red Hollow just as the first lanterns flickered to life. He dismounted without haste and tied his horse with practiced hands. The streets were empty, but eyes watched him from behind curtains and cracked doors. No one spoke, no one moved. He stepped into the saloon. The sound inside died instantly. Cards stopped sliding across tables. A laugh cut short. A glass slipped from trembling fingers and shattered on the floor. Every man inside knew who had just entered, even if they pretended otherwise. Ethan walked to the bar and sat down. "Whiskey," he said quietly. The bartender hesitated, then reached for the bottle. His hand shook as he poured the drink. Ethan lifted the glass but did not drink right away. He stared into the amber liquid as if it held reflections of another life. "You shouldn't be here," the bartender whispered. Ethan finally took a sip. The burn reminded him he was still alive. "They're coming," the bartender said. "They always do." Ethan nodded once. "I know." Outside, the wind began to rise. Clayton Crow was riding hard. He and his gang had left nothing but smoke behind them. Crow believed fear was the strongest weapon a man could carry, and he wielded it better than any gun. Towns burned because he was bored. Men died because they spoke when they should have stayed silent. Years ago, Clayton Crow had taken everything from Ethan Cole. A small house at the edge of a greener land, a wife who laughed easily, a boy who believed his father could stop the world from hurting him. That night had ended in fire and screams. Ethan had survived. His family had not. The desert had watched, By midnight, hooves thundered into Red Hollow, 6 riders, laughing, shooting into the air. They set a building on fire just to announce themselves. People screamed. Dogs ran. The sheriff vanished into the shadows. Clayton Crow dismounted in the center of town and smiled as flames danced in his eyes. "Morning comes soon," he shouted, "and when it does, someone's going to entertain me." Ethan watched from the darkness, his face calm, his mind burning. He checked his revolver. Not out of habit, out of respect. Dawn arrived slowly. The sky faded from black to gray, then to pale gold. Clayton Crow stood in the street, stretching like a man about to enjoy a show. "Send out your hero," he called, "or I start killing." Footsteps echoed, slow, calm. Ethan stepped into the light. For the first time, Clayton Crow's smile broke. "Well," Crow said, "I thought you were dead." "So did I," Ethan replied. The wind pushed dust between them. The past stood face to face with the present. No warning. The shots rang out. When the dust settled, Clayton Crow lay still. His men fled or fell where they stood. Ethan remained upright, wounded but breathing. He looked at the town, at the people who had been too afraid to hope. Then he turned away. By the time the sun fully rose, Ethan Cole was gone. Only footprints led back into the desert. Years later, people still spoke of that morning, of the man who faced the darkness and walked away. The desert does not forget, and neither do legends.